In the year of our Lord, 1589, a trial held in the town of Bedburg, some 20 miles west of Cologne, captured the public's imagination. And although there are no official records left of the case, it is very well documented. In all, we know of 7 contemporary publications, 4 from Germany, each one from Antwerp, London, and Denmark, the latter a translation of the English one. Judging from their similarities and differences, we can reduce it to 4 publications independent from each other. The London one, published in 1590, is the most comprehensive. It claims to base on a German publication which is unknown. And there is another witness, das Buch Weinsberg. Hermann Weinsberg was a Cologne-based wine merchant, lawyer, and long-serving city councillor in the second half of the 16th century. According to German historian Wolfgang Herborn, Weinsberg was a rather negligible city councillor whose name would long be forgotten hadn't it been for his writing, which Herborn calls the most eminent example of middle-class chronic from 16th century Germany. Weinsberg had written this chronicle not for publication, but as a support for future generations. However, his writings finally ended up in the city's archives until they were rediscovered in the mid-19th century. In his entries for 1589, Weinsberg mentions the Werewolf Trail as the talk of the town for months. And as the case was mentioned in later publications way into the 17th century, it is safe to assume that something horrible happened in this area nearly 450 years ago. And so,
get ready for the werewolf.
The Werewolf Trail begins right here at the Agatha Gate of the town of Alt-Kaster. The trail is some 10.5 kilometers long, approximately 6.5 miles. Here it leads by the ruins of Kaster Castle. In some hiking forums there is quite a bit of criticism of this trail. Yes, the marking leaves a lot to be desired. Some markings are overgrown by nature or hidden under bigger road signs. And on both occasions I hiked this trail, I lost my way briefly a couple of times. Yet I would never go as far as some critics who claim you cannot hike this trail without GPS. And while larger segments on paved roads and in residential areas are sometimes considered a no-go for a hiking trail, in this case, such cannot be avoided in order to connect the various historic sites. The trail is not really challenging. This brief incline to the Kasterer Höhe, the Kaster Heights, being the only serious uphill section. And with that, let's talk about the werewolf who lived not far from here. Most likely, Peter Stubbe was a farmer, and perhaps a rather wealthy one. We don't know exactly when he was born. Some say 1525, others 1540, which seems more likely to me. His hometown was the hamlet of Epprath, which no longer exists. Stubbe probably was a widower who lived with his grown-up daughter Bel. In the trial, he admitted having had an incestuous relationship with her for 7 years. Apparently, he also had an affair with another woman, a certain Catherine Trompen or Trompin. The accounts on her hint a close relation, perhaps a relative of his late wife or the godmother of his daughter. In illustrations of the case, we see two women getting executed alongside Stubbe, most likely his daughter and his lover. According to the sources, Stubbe was caught in the woods by a group of vigilantes. To me, this indicates there must have been bloodshed before. Our forefathers might have been less educated, most probably illiterate, but they were not stupid. And as they lived in much harder times than we do, their time management must have been very tight. Would they search for a werewolf or whatever monster just for the fun of it? I don't think so. Stubbe was brought to Bedburg, where he was accused, interrogated, tried and sentenced. His execution was on the 31st of October 1589, and I'll spare you the details. We can safely assume that his confession was given under torture and wouldn't last in a modern trial. And as Hermann Weinsberg was skeptic regarding the claims of sorcery and being a werewolf, so should we.
One thing I really like about this trail is that it tells a story. It is really an interesting experience to hike this trail and learn about the werewolf.
What about the real criminal charges for which he was sentenced? According to the sources, Stubbe confessed the murder of 13 children, one of which his own son. The publications also mention 3 grown-up victims. Most of them speak of 2 men and a woman whom Stubbe allegedly had killed in the same night. The source from London claims it was 1 man and 2 women, and it says Stubbe had raped his female victims before murdering them. He also admitted having killed numerous animals whenever he couldn't find human victims. Bear in mind again, these confessions were given under torture. It is quite interesting to consider the historical backdrop of the events of 1589. Bedburg had for years been ruled by the Counts of Neuenahr, who were Lutheran. So naturally they supported Reformation. In 1583, the Prince Bishop of Cologne got married after converting to Protestantism. And he claimed to be the secular prince and elector now, a claim that was heavily disputed by the cathedral chapter. And it was a breach of the Treaty of Augsburg, meant to create stable, peaceful relations between Catholics and Protestants. In the ensuing Cologne War, the Catholic side won. As the Counts of Neuenahr had supported the erstwhile bishop, they lost their realm in Bedburg, which was handed to the Catholic Counts of Salm-Reifferscheid-Diek. Catholicism was re-established, and important Protestants got expelled. Now that we know the historical backdrop, let's try to examine some explanations for the events. A fairly recent one claims Stubbe was a victim of Counter-Reformation, hinting that he might have been a wealthy Protestant. Well, we know nothing about his faith. In all those publications, there is not even a hint of him having been a Protestant. And some of these publications were from Protestant strongholds. And even in later years, as Germany tumbled into massive sectarian warfare, the Protestant side never once claimed Stubbe as a victim of, say, papist fanaticism. Yet history might serve us with another version. Stubbe as a scapegoat for atrocities carried out by mercenaries on the rampage. The Bedburg area was particularly hit by this, as many of these mercenaries were Catholic Spaniards and Protestant Dutchmen, both already fanaticized by the ongoing 80 Years' War for Dutch independence. Couldn't it be that, after the end of the Cologne War, authorities tried to wipe the slate clean and end discussions about the bloodshed of years past? And for one reason or another, their eyes fell on Stubbe.
And pretty much like the first time I hiked this trail, I somehow missed turning right. But if you look around, the sun has decided to come out. That's a lovely thing here on these final 1.5 kilometers roundabout back to my car.
Or could the story be made up, a mere product of publishers' fantasy and greed? After all, there are no official records of the case. And finally, what if Stubbe was guilty of the murders he confessed? What if he was a sort of early serial killer? As said before, our forefathers were perhaps uneducated, but no less intelligent than us. So how did Stubbe become a suspect? Were there perhaps some hints or observations that made him suspicious? We will probably never know.
So we're back nearly where we started, here at the aft gate of the lovely little town of Alt-Kaster. And well, is this trail worth it? That's the question, and I should say yes, definitely so. It might not be the most spectacular trail when it comes to mere hiking, but it is a trail that tells a story, a cruel story for sure. But the historical dimensions make this trail a particularly interesting one. So before I show you a few more images of this lovely little town, let me say thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed our little excursion, and I shall see you on the next video. Bye bye.
I hope these images of this lovely medieval village of Alt-Kaster will wipe away the blood spilled in this video. After all, despite of its bloody history, this is a lovely part of the country and certainly worth a visit. And besides, it has a hiking trail that tells quite a story. Did you like this story despite all the gore? Please let me know in a comment. And in case you enjoyed our little trip to the 16th century, please leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thank you.